Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to dive into something pretty amazing with me today?
Absolutely. I think this is going to be a fascinating one.
I think so too. We're tackling Jerusalem.
One of the most famous cities in the world.
Definitely. And for good reason, right? But we're not just looking at the tourist attractions or, the historical timeline. We're going deeper, using this Our Daily Bread piece as our starting point.
It's a great jumping off point to understanding Jerusalem's true significance.
Totally. Because this city, it wasn't just meant to be another dot on the map. It was actually designed with a purpose, a kind of spiritual blueprint, if you will.
It's true. The idea of Jerusalem as a spiritual hub, a kind of beacon for the whole world, it's woven into its very foundation.
It's a powerful image, a city designed to be a light to the nations, as they say, which honestly makes you wonder, what did that actually look like back then? I mean, were people just, walking around thinking, I'm a beacon of light every day?
Right. What did that even mean for them practically? It's a great question because, you see, back in ancient times, most cities were all about their king, their gods, their power.
It was all about who had the most, everything.
Exactly. But Jerusalem was supposed to be different. They were meant to reflect something else entirely, the righteousness of the one true God.
So not just another kingdom vying for power.
No. Their laws, their festivals, even the architecture, everything was built around this idea.
Wow, so it wasn't just about the physical buildings, it was about reflecting a totally different way of life. And that was supposed to draw other nations in.
Exactly. It was revolutionary, really. It was like saying, look, this is how you build a society based on justice, based on righteousness. But of course, human history, it's, rarely that simple, right?
And that takes us to the prophet Ezekiel, who had some, shall we say, strong opinions about Jerusalem's future. He predicted both its downfall, its utter destruction, and its eventual restoration. Talk about a roller coaster ride.
It's quite the story. And in Ezekiel 21:27, he drops this line about a crown, a really powerful symbol. It reads, "The crown will not be restored until he to whom it rightfully belongs shall come. To him I will give it."
Whoa. Okay, chills. So let's talk about that crown for a second. What did that even symbolize back then?
Well, think about kings like David or Solomon. Those crowns weren't just fancy headwear. They represented divine authority, the right to rule, to lead God's people.
It was a big deal.
Huge. So when Ezekiel talks about the crown being restored, he's not just talking about, finding a lost hat,
Right. It's not just about oh, there it is, under the couch.
Exactly. He's talking about Jerusalem's destiny. He's saying true leadership, true power, it's tied to this future king, this rightful heir.
Okay, so now the big question. Who is this heir? Who gets that crown? And what does it mean for the future of Jerusalem? I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, you're on the right track. This is where Jesus comes in.
It's kind of a twist, right? You have this prophecy about a powerful king who's going to restore Jerusalem to his former glory. And then Jesus shows up, and he's not exactly, seizing thrones. In fact, he weeps over the city. He knows it's headed for destruction. That's kind of a downer.
It really is.
Yeah.
And that lament over Jerusalem, it speaks volumes. Jesus isn't just going through the motions, he's truly heartbroken over the choices the city has made, the path they've chosen, and what he knows is coming as a result.
Which I guess is where this whole idea of a spiritual kingdom comes in, right? This isn't about just rebuilding walls and regaining political power. It's about something much bigger. The Our Daily Bread segment touched on this a bit.
It did, and it's important to unpack it because when Jesus talks about his kingdom, he's not talking about a physical place, a geographical location. He's talking about restoring our relationship with God, a reign of righteousness and justice, peace, a peace that starts in the heart and then it kind of radiates outward, transforming the world around us.
So less about earthly crowns and more about a different kind of kingship altogether.
Exactly. And this leads us to a really interesting verse in Revelation 5:10 where it talks about believers becoming kings and priests. Now, this isn't some kind of exclusive club or some far-off promise. It's an invitation here and now for every believer.
Okay, but what does that even look like, practically speaking? I mean, I don't wake up feeling like royalty or clergy. What does it mean for everyday people, you and me, to step into that kind of identity?
It's about recognizing the authority we have as followers of Jesus and the responsibility that comes with it. As kings, we're empowered to confront injustice, to fight for what's right, and to use our influence, however big or small, to make a positive impact on the world around us. And as priests, we become a bridge between God and humanity, bringing our prayers to Him, offering ourselves in worship, and reflecting his love and compassion to everyone we meet.
Wow, it's like we each carry a little piece of that crown Ezekiel was talking
I
about.
love that analogy.
Yeah.
Because it's not about grabbing power for ourselves, it's about reflecting the heart of the true king.
Which brings us to another incredible concept from the Our Daily Bread piece, the New Jerusalem. I mean, a city descending from heaven? Are we talking like spaceships and chariots of fire here?
The imagery in Revelation is definitely something else. But it's important to keep in mind that it's symbolic. The New Jerusalem represents the ultimate restoration, the culmination of God's plan for humanity. It's a world where God dwells with us in perfect harmony, no more pain, no more suffering, just pure joy and communion.
They even quoted Revelation 21:2 to 4 in the piece, and it always gives me chills. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. Just wow. Knowing that this is our ultimate destination really makes you think about what's truly important.
It really does. It changes everything.
So we've journeyed from this vision of Jerusalem as a light to the nations, all the way to this mind-blowing image of the New Jerusalem coming down from heaven. It's a lot to process, but it makes you think, what does this all mean for us right here, right now? We can't exactly fast forward to the grand finale.
That's the question, isn't it? If Jerusalem was always intended to radiate God's presence, how do we, as believers, reflect that same light in our own lives? Especially when the world can feel, well, pretty dark sometimes.
It's not about physically being in Jerusalem, right? It's about taking that idea of being a light and letting it shine wherever we are.
Exactly. Remember we talked about being kings and priests? It's about embodying God's character in everything we do and how we treat others, how we use our resources, how we stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. It's about living out those values that Jerusalem was always meant to represent.
It's like we're each building a little piece of that New Jerusalem brick by brick, right here in our own communities. But what does that look like in a practical sense? What are we building with?
It starts with those everyday choices. Choosing forgiveness instead of holding on to anger. Choosing to be generous instead of selfish. Choosing kindness even when it's easier to be indifferent. It's about letting those values guide our actions, even when no one's watching.
It's not about grand gestures. It's about the little things adding up to something so much bigger than ourselves. It's about reflecting that incredible hope we see in the New Jerusalem, that vision of a world completely made new.
And that's the power of taking a deep dive like this. It's not just about gaining knowledge, it's about letting that knowledge transform us from the inside out.
Perfectly said. Thanks for joining us on this journey today, everyone. And remember, this conversation doesn't end here. Keep exploring these ideas, keep those questions coming, and keep diving deeper into God's Word. We'll see you next time.